guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
A good day, a very good day to you, Ines. Wir sind in der Tube, kann man schon sehen, ist auch ziemlich tubeförmig in der,
Es ist auch ziemlich heiß hier.
in der Londoner Subway. Es ist ziemlich heiß hier, weil gestern war der heißeste Tag, den es hier jemals gab. Also wirklich ohne Scheiß. Hier steht sogar in der Zeitung, heißester Tag, den es jemals gab in England. Und da hatte die Linnean Society geschlossen. Und da ich einige Bücher zur Restaurierung gespendet habe oder die Restaurierung der Bücher gespendet habe, wollte ich mir doch mal anschauen, wie das jetzt läuft. Ja, Schatz. Ja, gerne, Schatz.
Und die Leute durchkommen.
Ja, Schatz. Und
Hier ist viel los.
ja, Schatz. Und ich bin schon gespannt, denn heute soll Teile der Staff wieder da sein. Leider ist am Bahnhof totales Chaos und da die meisten Menschen gar nicht in London wohnen, die in London arbeiten, sondern halt hin und her pendeln und auf richtige Züge angewiesen sind, die Züge aber alle komplett gesperrt sind. Andere Seite. Bin ich mal gespannt. Also gestern war komplett geschlossen. Mal sehen, ob heute jemand da ist. Ich glaube aber schon. Das ist interessante Fruchtsaftwerbung. Jetzt interessante Fruchtsaftwerbung, Häschen.
Ja?
Ja. Für Fruchtsäfte. Ja. Was bedeutet das?
Was bedeutet was jetzt?
Oasis won't make you sexier, just less thirstier. Be your own oasis.
Ja. Ja. Warum nicht?
Musical gehen wir nicht. Frozen und Lion King. Wenn ihr dieses Video 2050 seht, werdet ihr höchstens die Musicals dann noch leben, wer weiß. Hier sind hinter diesem Ticket-Machines-Häschen.
Ja.
Wie die Tade ist.
Muss man sich wünschen, dann kommt da was raus.
Melon. Ja, jetzt sind wir schon am Piccadilly Circus. Früher war hier die große Coca-Cola-Reklame, die scheint nicht mehr da zu sein.
Da ist Coca-Cola.
Da ist Coca-Cola. Wo denn? Weiß ich nicht. Oder? Ja, stimmt, da ist Coca-Cola. Ja. Der totale Knaller mitten am Piccadilly Circus hier, habt ihr gerade schon gesehen. Da, wo die Coca-Cola-Leinwand ist und das Denkmal, ist jetzt auch Body Worlds. Wer hätte das gedacht? Also ich hätte das nicht gedacht.
Ich auch nicht.
Crazy shit. Wir sind ja mit unseren Kursen auch regelmäßig in Guben bei den Körperwelten bzw. im Plastinarium. Wart ihr schon mal dabei? Postet ihr drunter, was ihr da erlebt habt. Wenn wir schon in so einer als ehrwürdigen Gegend sind, dann ziehe ich mich natürlich auch vernünftig an. Dazu brauche ich habe ja mittlerweile gar keine Hemden mit Kragen mehr. Also ihr seht schon, hier ist wirklich super old-fashioned. Das heißt, ich ziehe jetzt mein Hemd mit Kragen an.
Also hast du doch ein Hemd mit Kragen?
Ja, das habe ich aber extra wieder besorgt. Das muss ich mir extra besorgen. Das könnt ihr nur sehen, wenn ich in Naturkundemuseen oder bei besonders wichtigen Veranstaltungen bin, weil da kommt dann diese Krawatte dazu. Das ist die Linnean Society Tie. Die habt ihr gesehen bei meinem Vortrag im Naturkundemuseum in Berlin, im Europäischen Parlament, in Namibia beim Kongress der Insektenkundler und Insektenkundlerinnen. Und ihr merkt schon, ich kann mich an jedes Mal erinnern, wenn ich die Krawatte anhatte, weil ich das so selten mache. Wie findest du das, Häschen? Ist dir das schon zu super oldschoolig?
Nee, ich mag Männer in Anzügen.
Es hat schon ein bisschen was Indiana Jones-mäßiges, ne? Muss man sagen. So, zum Anzug oder Hut. Aber gut, so ist es jetzt halt. Ich finde es tapfer von dir, dass du das alles erträgst und alles mitmachst. Die Telefonzellen gibt's noch. Die kennt ihr vom letzten Video noch, von vor ein paar Jahren, aber es geht abwärts. Man kommt jetzt mittlerweile gar nicht mehr dran. Sie sind jetzt schon so abgesperrt. Es ist irgendwie nur noch rein museal offenbar. Mitten in Piccadilly treffen wir euch. Wer seid ihr?
Hallo, Sabine und Harry mit unserem Enkel aus Görlitz. Wir waren schon mindestens 3 Mal auf so einer...
In der Brauerei.
Genau.
In der Landskronbrauerei. Trinkt ihr Bier?
selten.
Selten. Habt ihr englisches Bier schon mal probiert?
Ja. Aber es ist zu teuer.
Es
Viel
ist so, oh ja, das stimmt. Ja, besonders hier in der Ecke. Ne? Was habt ihr hier besichtigt?
Wir sind gestern erst angekommen.
Ach so, ihr fangt gerade erst an.
Ja.
Ihr fangt gerade erst an. Also ich gehe jetzt zur Naturwissenschaftlichen Gesellschaft, wir gucken mir alte Bücher an, das ist wahrscheinlich zu langweilig für euch. Vorne sind die Körperwelten, bitte die Circles, also wenn ihr wollt, könnt ihr die Körperwelt angucken. Sehr, sehr schön. So, jetzt machen wir noch ein Foto, ne? Gut. Tschö. Wir stehen jetzt hier vor der Linnean Society und was man hier nicht tun darf, ist auf der Treppe rumsitzen. Ist nicht erwünscht. Scheinbar hat es irgendwer gemacht. Jetzt macht es aber keiner mehr. Muss man auch mal sagen.
Ja, das stimmt.
Also das Schild funktioniert. Das ist natürlich alles ganz altehrwürdig hier, das könnt ihr euch vorstellen. Mit Menschen, die naturwissenschaftliche Leistungen vollbracht haben früher mal. Es ist die älteste naturwissenschaftliche Gesellschaft, die funktioniert. Es gibt in Berlin noch eine kleine Gesellschaft, die hat aber natürlich, also die macht nichts auch nur annähernd von dem, was hier stattfindet. Hier sind dauernd Vorträge, Kongresse, alles Mögliche. Hier ist Karl von Linné. Nachdem der hat die Pflanzen und Tiere so benannt, also so, zum Beispiel Homo sapiens. Diese Benennung stammt von ihm, dieses System. Da liegt ja, da ist eine kleine Opfergabe dargebracht worden. Wenn ihr wisst, was das ist, postet es unten. Hello, I'm now on is this the second floor of Linnean Society? Yeah. And I've never been here in my whole life. I was only downstairs and on the basement floor. And here is, you're already taking care of some of the books. We are coming to this. But why do you need a carpet cutter?
Because, I use it for cutting board, that one. But I've got, see, you'll recognise these, all my lovely surgical instruments.
It's a scalpel.
I think if I hadn't been a conservator, I would have been a surgeon.
So what made you become a conservator instead of a surgeon?
I like cutting things.
Yeah, but you could have become a surgeon then.
Yeah.
So why didn't you become a surgeon? You don't know?
Because there'd be a lot of dead people around, probably.
Also, there's a screwdriver.
I'm not clever enough for that.
You are clever enough for that. What's a screwdriver for?
At the moment, I'm also taking pictures out of frames, so I need that to.
Ah, I see.
I have so many small tools that are used in other walks of life. You know, whether that's in the leather trade, whether it's surgical instruments are fantastic because of all the small cutting blades that you've got. And then I've got these things which are
Oh yeah, most people don't know them.
bone folders.
Oh yeah, we have to explain it. There's even a YouTube, isn't there like a little YouTube movie from Linnean Society about book folders? Yes, there is. There is.
Yes, I think
Watch
there's
the YouTube Linnean Society movie. What are they for?
So therefore, you find a nice piece of paper. So when you want to fold a piece of paper, you can crease it like that. Also, if you want to smooth something out that one's dry now, so I won't do it.
Yeah.
You can use these things. They're also good for cutting paper. So
Exactly.
you know.
And cutting paper was necessary because formerly the books were delivered, folded, they came out of the printer's shop, and they were not cut open, so you could not read them. You could not flip through the books properly, or at least you could not open all the pages.
Yeah.
So this is now it becomes a page cutter.
Yeah, a paper cutter can be.
Paper cutter.
Although you'd have ones that are differently designed to this, perhaps. But they come in all shapes and sizes. Traditionally, some were made of ivory, which you cannot buy anymore. The advantage.
At least not in England.
No. You might find antique ones. The advantage of because I deal a lot with glue, so sometimes the glue will stick to the bone. The good thing about ivory is it has natural oils in it, so it tends to be far more non-stick. But okay, we're not going to use ivory ones.
No.
There are conservators that are vegans that won't use the bone folders. Just a heads up, they look slightly different because about once a year I soak them in some kind of oil. Doesn't matter, almond oil, anything, because it just helps to make them slightly less non-stick. Makes them more non-stick.
Oil is hard to get these days. We heard that you can trade sunflower oil for beers in London. Did you hear that in a pub? Oh no, that was in Germany. Oh no, that was not London. Oh, I'm sorry, that was in Germany. Do you also have a sunflower oil crisis?
Yes,
in United Kingdom?
you can't find. It's difficult to find and costs a lot of.
So which oil instead of sunflower?
It doesn't matter. You can use any oil, olive oil, whatever oil you've got kicking around the house will work out. And I just soak them for about a day, and it just gives them. That's why they kind of go a funny colour, because it's just bone. But in modern times, the other thing they've come up with are ones made of Teflon.
Oh.
And
now we're jumping 250 years ahead of time.
Yeah. So you can buy a bone folder for probably under £5 these days. I don't know. They always used to cost a couple of pounds in a shop, and you can easily shape them yourself if you want to. These ones are about probably £20 to £30 each. They're made of Teflon. They are pre-shaped because it's carcinogenic and you're not supposed to file it down, and I've never tried anyway. But the great thing about them is that if you use a bone folder on something, you end up leaving burnishing marks. You probably can't see that, but you leave a slight shine on the paper.
Yes, of course.
Whereas
Teflon doesn't leave a burnishing mark, but it's not as hard, so it's not always as good for creasing. But they're very, very useful. I like these. So super cool.
And they last a lifetime. So.
They last a lifetime, probably more than a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. So
and over here you are starting to repair or restore or beautify a book.
Yes. So let me just take that out for you. I've done the repair. This one is this is a book that you adopted. It's a book on minerals by somebody called
Rudolf Augustin Vogel.
Mm-hmm. And I just discovered that my 5 times great grandfather was named Vogel, we say here, that he emigrated from Germany in the early 1800s and became a bookseller, binder and printer.
Not a coincidence, as far as I can judge.
Yeah, anyway, that's a sideline. But this, so this is the book you adopted, which is, nice date there, 1762.
Let me probably read what it says. It's Dr. Rudolf Augustin Vogel, der Arzneien gelehrt hat, ordentlichen Lehrer zu Göttingen, der römisch-kaiserlichen Akademie der Naturforscher, wie auch der königlich-schwedischen und kurfürstlichen mainzerischen Akademie der wissenschaftlichen Mitglieder. He was a member in a lot of societies. Plenty of societies.
Yeah. So this would be Linnaeus's copy that he had of that one. I'm sorry, I'm still in the middle of trying to repair it. So the binding on this is the paper one that would have come from the printer.
Straight out of the printer's shop.
Yeah.
But somebody cut the book open already.
Oh yes, because perhaps Linnaeus. I mean, it's been read. What's the point of a book that you can't read? But typically what happens to these bindings is that obviously the spine goes because they're only made of paper. The binding is, I think it's called a stationer's binding, not a stationary binding is a big sprung bound thing. But this is a stationer's folder. So it was a cheap folder that the book came in. Many people in certainly in the 18th century would have probably taken these books, which weren't cheap, and they would have rebound them themselves with their own binder.
Yeah, and beautifully in a hard card.
But I love these paper bindings. I think they're just really nice. And Linnaeus, bless him, didn't always bother to get his rebound.
How do you know that this book is out of the library of Carl von Linné? Because most people will be what?
It came to the Linnean Society, and Smith, when Smith bought it from the Linnaeus's, he bought the collection.
So I just yesterday saw a Linnean talk about the tin box, the plant tin box, and you call it what is it called, provenance or something like that. So you have files that tell you when something was acquired or given to the society.
This would have been catalogued, listed by Smith, and it's now in our catalogue. So we know Smith wrote his name in it, as all good book owners do. And, so
if you want to see the YouTube video about the plant collecting box of Darwin, not of Linné, watch the video. It's also delivered to you proudly by Linnean Society.
Yes.
But back to the book. Yes.
So what I had to do with this was the covers were loose and there was no spine. So what I've done is I've repaired underneath there. I've repaired the spine with Japanese paper, so it could be taken off. Everything should be reversible. So it's just done with wheat starch paste and Japanese paper. And then I've just created a new, very simply, a new spine. It's not beautiful, but it does the job and could be removed.
To me, it's beautiful.
Yes. It'll be more beautiful when it's finished.
How do you feel holding a book in your hand that probably Carl von Linné, did read or at least had a look at?
I'm spoiled. I'm handling them all the time. So
for how many years?
Yeah,
Since how many years?
I've been here about 20 years, so yeah, I get used to it. But yeah, I'm mindful that I'm very lucky, and a lot of people would like to be in my shoes. So
super. All right. It's probably is it getting warm in here during the heat wave?
Yes, terrible.
What did you do yesterday? We just read that it was the hottest day in British history. How did you get here? Because the trains did not run.
I didn't. We stayed home. We closed the society down because it's the travelling is the worst thing, and the tube can be very, very hot.
Tube can be very hot. King's Cross was closed upstairs for the rail. So you just did stay at home.
I stayed home, looked out of the window, and waited for the possibility of a thunderstorm, but we didn't get one. So
it rained a little bit in the evening.
I didn't get any.
Okay, final question. We talked about small things. We talked about the Japanese. Did you call it Japanese paper?
Yes.
This looks much more massive and solid. What is this?
Okay, I call that a book press. It was also used in the printing trade. So it's what it is. It's heavy metal. It's absolutely solid. It probably weighs about 280 kilos, 250 kilos maybe.
It will survive the last day. Yeah. The last day on Earth. This is actually a Victorian one. They're very. They don't make them like that anymore. Do you still need it and use it, or?
Yeah, because when you're trying to, if you want to flatten something, especially if you're doing bookbinding where you're sticking the end papers down, and you need to get a nice big clamp on it, then that's the best thing to use.
That's the one you need. It's probably heavy to carry, but you can over.
It comes in 3 parts. I can lift this bit up, but I can't do the rest. I'm not popular when I want to move it. But I've got it on a trolley. So.
Before we go down, why are you not wearing a Linnean Society tie?
Because I don't own one, but they are for sale, I understand.
Maybe you want to give a generous gift to the repair workshop over here. It's something that do you think it came out of fashion already? Is it probably something that's not in fashion anymore?
A lot of people don't wear ties, and wearing ties with a coat of arms on, or with a club tie, for example, I think is really something that goes back to the sort of maybe pre-1980s. I don't know. When I first came here I started working here freelance in the late 1990s. We had a whole stock of them, but very few people.
I remember that.
Then, yeah.
I remember that. I have a red one, a green one, a blue one. So I have several ones. Probably I was the one to buy them all.
Probably.
I bought them all. That's why Will doesn't have one, because I just bought them all away. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For your time, and I'm going down and read a little bit probably, huh?
Do you want to go and have a look at some of the other books? Yes. Okay, so let's go down and find the.
That's more books here. Books everywhere. Books are also coming out of fashion, in a sense, but no, not for us. As long as we live, they're not getting out of fashion. Do you digitalize a lot of the books or no? Over here?
We do have a program where we digitize some of the books that we have. A lot of the Linnean collections have been digitized. But
at the end of the day, it's better to have the book in your own hands.
It's actually cheaper to look after even books that need repair. It's cheaper to look after those than it is to maintain a database.
I agree.
Or a digital archive.
And also,
if
there are mistakes in the database, then you don't find the book or the part of the text that you're looking for. So I also prefer.
The great thing about a book is that you don't need an intermediary. You've got the book, you can read it. You don't have to have a machine that will.
Yeah. Break down during a heat wave. Carl von Linné war super, mega berühmt. Hier in diesen Räumen, genau gesagt da drüben, hat Charles Darwin die Evolutionstheorie verlesen lassen. Er war einen Tag krank. Und Wallace, der Mitbegründer der Evolutionstheorie, hatte auch hier vorgetragen. Also das sind wirklich historische Räume hier. Und hier ist lauter so, ja, so, wie soll man sagen, Gläser, Medaillen, Programmhefte, alles Mögliche, was dann nach Carl von Linné benannt wurde. Das war früher so üblich. Ihr kennt das heute noch von so Straßenplätzen, die so benannt sind und irgendwelchen Gebäuden und dass man Statuen überall hingestellt hat. So in der Liga hat er gespielt als Biologe. Es gibt also auch mal, dass Naturwissenschaftler so bekannt werden. Kanntest du Carl von Linné? Also, nein.
Vor dir noch.
Aber Charles Darwin?
Ja.
Ja. Also ist alles hier und hier hinten ist eine riesige Kunstausstellung. Die ist auch mal ziemlich abgefahren. So, as you can see, these are valuable books, or they are valued. Das ist ein dicker Tresor. Home Sweet Home. Das hier ist wirklich sehr, sehr alt, von Theophrastus. Die Historia Plantarum. Der ist schon fast mittelalterlich, aus dem 17. Jahrhundert. Das ist von Plinius. Ihr kennt vielleicht die Szene aus dem Tanz der Vampire, wo der Professor zu diesen ganzen alten Büchern geht. Das sind diese ganzen alten Bücher, die er da besingt. Könnt ihr mal sehen. Vögel. So, hier ist jetzt eins der adoptierten Bücher. Das könnt ihr sehen. Das ist jetzt ein Buch, was tatsächlich mal von Linné stammt. Es wurde ein bisschen hergerichtet, ein bisschen schöner gemacht. Hier seht ihr, früher hat man in die Bücher noch reingeschrieben, haben die Leute noch so Anmerkungen reingemacht. Das ist heute natürlich nicht mehr so erwünscht. Aber für uns ist das natürlich sehr interessant, weil wir dadurch lernen, was die Menschen da als Zusatzinformationen für wichtig gehalten haben. Ich mag das sehr gerne. Ich mag das gerne, wenn da was reingeschrieben ist, weil man dann, weiß man, es gibt eine Zusatzinformation. Ne? Hier haben wir ein ganz besonderes Buch, das habe ich auch adoptiert. Und hier seht ihr eine ganz besondere Art. Das ist kein Marmorpapier. It's not marble paper, but it's paste. Also das ist eine Art Klebepapier und das hat eine ganz kleine Bevölkerungsgruppe in Ostdeutschland gemacht. A small group of people from Eastern Germany, and some of them came to England later and brought that technique with them.
Of that combing, yes.
Of that type of combing. Yeah. It's sometimes you still see it in old books, usually on the inside, but I've never seen it on the outside.
Yes.
So that's,
and it was used commonly because it was again a cheaper way of producing a decorative cover, much cheaper than leather and cheaper than marbled paper, which was pricey. This is in the period when paper was handmade and we didn't have coloured printing like we did in the middle of 19th century.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. We should explain that. Usually the books, if possible, were bound in leather. Sometimes vellum, that would be whitish, but it's how would you call it? Cream colored. Cream colored. So that is also leather, but usually it would be brown leather, and then it had some gold printing on it, as you can see here. But often people didn't have the money, so they used this beautiful type of paper. There's a very good video produced by the Linnean Society about that online.
I think there's a blog.
It was
true.
It's
Treasures.
It's true. It's a blog. Yes.
But also, paper was varied in quality, and so another reason for doing this was because it would hide the flaws in the papers sometimes. So yeah, all very practical.
Why not?
All very practical.
Ja. Carl von Linné war natürlich war sehr an Pflanzen interessiert, aber auch an Tieren. Hier könnt ihr das mal sehen, was für eine fantastische Drucktechnik das ist. Even though the paper had differed in quality, the printing is absolutely perfect, even to today's standards. I mean, the resolution is perfect. It's just plain beautiful. Do you have old books at home or just here at the society?
I buy them in second-hand shops, but they usually need repairing, and I never get round to repairing them.
Oh, you're like a cook who doesn't cook at home, so you don't repair at home?
Well, no, I do, but you know, occasionally.
Occasionally. Also früher musste man die natürlich auch auffalten, die Karten, weil das war alles schwierig. Hier, geh noch mal ganz nah ran. Ihr könnt auch sehen, die Karten hier sind richtig reingeklebt. Also das ist alles nicht so, wie das dann ist. Also wunderschön. Super beautiful. Yes. Would you ever feel like doing anything against the discolorations, or would you just say it doesn't matter, that's just the story of the book and it's just the way it is?
It depends. There are ways of sometimes of removing stains, but the problem is that you don't want to damage the paper further. So it's an issue that you weigh up. That doesn't really detract from the, and that's the measure. If you can't see what's underneath because of the stain, then you might want to do something about it. But although that's annoying, it's not. You can see the print.
I like it. To me, it's not annoying at all. I find it beautiful, really.
I like things that are stained. I like things that are torn and old because that's what I get pleasure from repairing. But for some people, but look at the difference. So
it's totally, the paper is totally
so what
different.
has happened? But these have been. And I don't know too much about the history of this book, but these have been guarded in. So when the book was bound, there would be these part pages. Can you see?
Yes.
That were bound in, and then these would have been just glued on top. So it is possible that would this have been stained and damaged before? I have no way of knowing.
And if you get a little closer, maybe you can even see that the papers are have different quality and different thickness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how this book was constructed.
I like this thing. I mean, it's just.
I'm sure they would tell a story.
There's one more thing that is interesting here. Hier ist noch was Interessantes. Hier könnt ihr lesen, hier steht Superierum permissu, because books to be printed, it had to be allowed, for example, by the church. We don't know who had to allow it here in this particular case, but you couldn't just print any book because they were very valuable and they were under social control. And so obviously here there was also some social control, and in the end it was printed.
In the same way, in the UK we had, for many years, we had taxation on paper, and that was a way of keeping the purchase of paper under control, because, you know, people write things which could be seditious.
Just not tolerated socially.
So it was a way of controlling media.
Ja. Also das ist nichts Neues. Zensur gibt es schon immer. Ich kann hier mal was vorlesen. Ad me igitur redeo qui post dexessum celeberrimi viri Juli ponderere. Oder wenn ihr das mal anders hören wollt, könnt ihr das auch gerne in dem Film mit Mel Gibson euch anhören. Er spricht ja italienisches Lateinisch. Das hört sich auch sehr interessant an. Alright.
Okay.
Liebe sehr.
757.
Hier kommt jetzt ein Buch, das ist sogar mit einem Bändchen umbunden. Das kann man komplett auseinandernehmen. Der Grundriss des gesamten Mineralreiches, worinnen alle Fossilien in einem ihren wesentlichen Beschaffenheiten gemäßen Zusammenhang vorgestellt und beschrieben werden. So möchte ich Buchtitel hören. The book titles were very long at that time, right? very, very precise and descriptive. Do you like the old font?
It looks attractive. I find it really difficult to read.
Ja. Könnt ihr noch Fraktur lesen? Poste das hier drunter.
Although this is clearer than a lot of them.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes they switch between the Latin and the Gothic font. Let's have a look inside. Probably they even did it here.
And going back to the talking about early German printers, when I say early, I mean there was an influx of Germans that came to the UK in the late 18th century, early 19th century, and set up printing businesses. And the reason was that there were, because of the king, and we had a German king, and so a lot of Germans moved here. But the problem with the English printers was that they couldn't work out the lettering, and there were lots of mistakes made, and so in the end they just imported German printers to come in and do it, who would set up their businesses all over the city.
So you had a lot of so the Germans at that point were probably book printers. If you saw a German,
well, yes, certainly. I mean, I'm sure they weren't rich, but the other thing they specialised in, because the German Lutheran Church had a lot of, obviously there were a lot of Germans here, they weren't all in high paid jobs by any means. And Bibles then were very, very expensive. And so another thing that happened was that these printers would produce inexpensive German Bibles in German.
And probably also beer and bread. That would be also two things that Germans are
Yes, there were
famous.
German bakers in the East End of London, that's for sure.
Did you still experience one when you were younger? Or didn't they exist anymore?
No,
You were just saying books in need are interesting.
books that need repairing look lovely to me.
To you.
They're attractive. Yeah.
They're attractive, but they're also dangerous because they could fall
Well,
apart.
obviously, if you try to use them, then the stuff will they'll become more damaged. But they just in that state, you know, where they've been used and loved, and pages have been turned, people have spilt things on them. Oh, yeah, it's something lovely.
Cut them open probably because they were delivered in a closed state. You remember the paper knife?
Yeah.
Ah, it's beautiful here. Yeah. I could stay here forever, but I won't because you have to work, and I will go up and read a little bit in the library. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
And also you did say that you were cleaning the books in between, so the books collect dust, I imagine. Is it?
They do not very much in here. It's the atmosphere is quite clean, but they haven't the shelves. You know, bits of the paper turns to dust very slowly. But every so many years, you really just need to have a clean up. We're very all I do is dust them. I don't use any leather treatments or anything. Years ago, they would clean. For example, the vellum bindings would be cleaned with cream or milk. We don't do that anymore.
Also, I remember sitting upstairs and there was a leather dressing. Allegedly, it came from the British Library, allegedly recommended it. Yep. I bought a bottle here in England, but now it's out of fashion and nobody uses it anymore. It was a white milky substance.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the thing is, the problem is with leather is that if it started to degrade, I mean, you can make it look shiny and you can clean it. But really, the leather dressing is probably more for the humans looking at it than any good that it does, because whatever's going on underneath, you're not going to really... You can't moisturize leather, not really.
Yeah. And it's not recommended anymore anyways.
No, because it leaves a residue on the books and makes the books sticky. So then it affects the book next to it. Also, dust sticks to it. I'm sure there are still people that use it. I mean, they're not terrible things to use, but...
It's not helping either.
It doesn't really help, yeah.
In diesem Tresorraum gibt es natürlich nicht nur Bücher, sondern hier ist auch die Sammlung von Linné. Ich will das hier nur mal ganz kurz andeuten. Ihr könnt das hier unten sehen, diese ganzen Schubladen, die sind alle voll mit den Sammlungen des Begründers der Benennung der Pflanzen und der Tiere. Das sind die Schmetterlinge, die sind natürlich besonders hübsch, aber es sind auch ganz andere Sachen da, die ihr da weiter hinten seht. Hier sind zum Beispiel Schnecken zu sehen. Oh, hier ist was vom Wallace, das habe ich schon erwähnt. Den könnt ihr hier sehen. Fische. Käfer und Bücher.
it's fun.
Well, better than nothing.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I think it's fun, and they're also just very funny because they're slightly pompous, and frustrated men who are looking for, stimulation from the metropole and resources from the metropole to support work that is considered fringe. So yeah, it's fun. I find them really hilarious.
Thank you.
Is this for a project you're doing?
Probably you don't understand us when we're whispering. So we step outside for a second. And you were just saying, oh, that's okay. I think we can stand here under the image of an old white man. No, that's okay. Let's just whisper.
He's a funny white man.
I love another white man. And
Lambert. I'm actually familiar with some of
You're
those
familiar with
concepts, yeah.
So you were saying you were looking for some letters and you found a few letters,
Yeah.
but at the same time you were doing a project concerning the pictures that I will show in a second. So what's this?
So my work at the Linnean Society actually started out because I discovered this character in another archive, the Royal Asiatic Society, called Thomas Hardwick, and at that time I was particularly invested in meteorology and how the exactitude of climatology features in the production of the exact scientific tradition in India. And so I've written a chapter about him. I called it Weather in India, and from there kind of burgeoned to looking at Hardwick's larger contributions to natural history within the colony and the metropole, and how colonial endeavors end up informing and formulating societies for this kind of work. So he's actually very seminal to the creation of the Zoological Society, which no longer has separate archives. I mean, it's just the zoo now, right? But their archives are kind of scattered across Linnean and other places. And from there I got really interested in several of these men, these colonial naturalists who have military postings. There's someone called Stamford Raffles, who's quite well known, and they're in constant correspondence with James Edward Smith, of course, who's one of the presidents of the Linnean Society. And
we saw him writing in books. We saw he wrote Acquired by Smith.
Yeah, and the Smith collections are very, dense and fascinating. I worked with them last year, so I've already worked through all of those. And what I'm really fascinated right now about is how there's these other intersections. I mean, one of the letters that I was just working with, it was fascinating, is about silk and silk samples being studied. And most people wouldn't think that silk, wouldn't make the direct connection between silk and zoology, but of course it's all about silkworms, right?
It's an animal product.
Exactly, right? So I mean, I'm also thinking about how the imaginary of zoology is capaciously conceived amongst these people, and how they're thinking of making a kind of hobby and fascination with the natural world relevant to their patrons, because it's really difficult to justify hobbyism unless the colonial state can see a way that it can be leveraged for governance and trade. So my sense for them is they're not necessarily inherently committed to governance. They think of it as something they have to do in order to be able to negotiate. They're really kind of more interested in exploring the natural world in this sense. So it's quite fascinating.
But are you more a historian or more a biologist?
I'm a historian, but I love nature and animals, and I don't love zoos. I have some ethical reservations about zoos. So I
have a lot of reservations, not only ethical reservations.
Yeah. So I'll always skirt around the zoos in every city. It's very painful to see animals caged in that way. Yeah. I don't like safaris, so to see them in the natural environment.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Don't go to zoological gardens, or if you go, then ask them probably to work with invertebrates maybe, or free living birds that fly around in the city anyways, or something like that.
Yeah, even aviaries I think are quite contested spaces.
No, I mean free living in the sense of totally free living. So just provide some food and then
I do that all the time. Yeah, so it's funny because I was in Bosnia and Croatia. And the birds in the Mediterranean are not timid, they're quite confident. So they'll just come and sit on your table and eat your bread. And I thought it was amazing. And so eventually I was putting pasta and bread on the ground for them, and the restaurant did not look happy. But,
You should have just put it on the table, because since the birds are coming...
I think there's some restaurant etiquettes that would not have allowed me to stay on if I'd done that. But yeah, actually some of them are like quite fascinating because they're interested in like avian life as well, and specifically avian life, which is not common in the 19th century because they have to really cast the net wide. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So as you can see, the society is also good for historians, not only for
One of the few historians who comes here. I don't know. Do other historians frequent the Linnean Society?
Oh, probably yes,
Okay.
because by now it is all falling into the realms of history, probably.
Yeah.
Like,
The distinction between natural history and history was quite sharp back in the day, and now I think the boundaries have become a little more porous.
at least when it comes to old societies like these.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite archives. It's like fascinating, it's therapeutic, and it's just like one of those rare gems that people don't know about. And I had the best time working here last year. Been triangulating some of the sources I found here with the Natural History Museum, which has some good archives as well.
Okay, and now I'm going to let you work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Sure, I'm just excited about it.
Looking at that. So, jetzt müssen wir leider weiter. Vielleicht können wir noch einen kleinen Blick neben diesen ganzen Männern. Das ist übrigens Karl von Linné hier hinten, den könnt ihr sehen. Ja, Karl von Linné. Vorhin habt ihr die Statue schon gesehen, der die ganzen Pflanzen und Tiere bemalt hat. Vielleicht können wir noch das Gemälde von Charles Darwin sehen, was im Meeting Room ist. Der Meeting Room ist geschlossen. Das ist leider zu. Aber da hängt ein berühmtes Bild drin. Und das zeigen wir euch dann nächstes Mal. Tschüss. Wie hat es dir gefallen, Häschen?
Sehr gut.
Was hat dir am besten gefallen?
Ich mag es ja immer in diesen alten Gebäuden zu sein und diesen ganzen Büchern und so weiter. Das gefällt mir sehr, sehr gut.
Cool. Und ihr wisst ja, nicht auf der Treppe sitzen. Also wenn ihr mal hier vorbeikommt, bitte nicht vorne auf der Treppe rumsitzen. Tschüss aus Burlington House, mitten in London. Vielleicht, wisst ihr was? Vielleicht buche ich mal den großen, coolen Meeting Room für uns. Dann machen wir eine richtig schöne Konferenz und ich erzähle euch was Nettes, wenn ihr Bock habt. Tschüss, immer.